I want to talk about the difference between dinking cross-court and dinking down the line while drilling. This isn't strategy. This is not what we do when we actually play points. But most of the drills that you do in pickleball, you want to do down the line. I think it's the greatest simulation of anything that you can do because one, you have less reaction time. Two, you have less space to hit the ball. So if you're trying to dink aggressively, you have a lot less space to work with and the net's always higher. So you're making things very difficult to achieve a somewhat straightforward goal. And so for this drill, when we start going cross court after doing a good hour, 2 hours of work down the line, when you go cross court after going down the line, it feels like you have all the space in the world. When you try to hold that ball and clear the table as you're going, you feel like there's no chance that you can't be aggressive. So let's talk about when you're dinking cross court. The biggest thing that I see that people go wrong is when they're dinking cross court, they're facing cross court. And by doing that, I've now lost the whole right side of my body, or if I'm on the backhand side, the whole left side. You still want to face forward. In pickleball, your hips should always be forward, but your shoulder is what follows the ball. So if I dink cross court, my shoulder is now facing this way, but my hips are forward. By doing this, if the ball comes down the middle, I'm going to shift and I can drive on the backhand side. If the ball comes further enough to my forehand, I'm now way in front of it. Where if I was here, now I'm going to lean back to hit it and hit it back here. So by keeping my hips forward and turning my shoulders, I'm able to attack wherever that ball is. Now, when we're dinking cross court, the same thing applies. I want to try to hold that ball, keep it in front of me. If I can take that ball in the air, that's what I want to do. I'm trying to dink to the outside quarter of the court. I should still only be taking one step, especially when you're dinking cross court. If you're taking more than one step, you're moving way too much. Notice I'm not talking about rolling for this drill because we're focusing on a specific thing. We're still trying to hold that ball and dink it into the aggressive part of the kitchen. Remember, that's the second half of the kitchen. And ultimately in the outside quarter of the court, if you split the court into fours, or if you split half the court into twos, I'm trying to dink to the outside quarter. What you have to think about when you're dinking cross court though is how deep are you dinking? So if I'm dinking to the outside quarter in the aggressive part of the kitchen, which is here, nobody's gonna do an ATP. I'm gonna force them to break their posture. You can be aggressive. But if you can't get those dinks deep and now you're dinking shorter into the defensive part of the kitchen, this is the balls that tend to go outside of the court where people can do an ATP and also balls that they can start rolling on. So if you want to neutralize your opponent and you want to force them to break their posture and you get good at drilling down the line, it's very easy to start drilling cross court. And the focus here should be how many balls can I take out of the air? I'm not looking to hit a winner. I'm just looking to hit my target, which is all the way out to where he's standing. My paddle barely moves. It's all from my legs and it's all from my shoulder pushing forward. A big question I get is what happens when we're dinking cross court, and if we can imagine that there's 4 people on the court when I start feeling pressure. Remember in pickleball, we don't want to step across our body because when we do that, we use our wrist. We always want to step with that open stance so that we can utilize our outside leg to really push the ball in the direction that we're going. But what happens when I'm playing someone that's a little bit better than me, that's forcing me back? What do? You know, if we know that the defensive part of the kitchen is the reset button and the offensive part of the kitchen is where we can attack, well, we can't really reset the ball down the line because somebody's going to earn you. Somebody's always going to look to attack. So when that happens in doubles, when we're dinking cross court and we feel that pressure, the reset button is then in the middle of the court in the defensive zone. So a drill that I like to do, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is when we're dinking cross court, I like to go 1 cross court and then 2 cross court. And then the third one, I like to drop it in the defensive zone in the middle and then go back to my target and then back to my target again and then drop the next one in the middle. And so by working on those patterns, I'm pushing, and then I'm resetting. And it's all coming from my shoulder and my leg, and then my shoulder and my leg. The paddle position doesn't change. But by me putting those shots in my head, even though I could probably attack all of them, as we all can in practice, I'm now going to remember those options when I have less time. And when all of us have less time, whether it's in tennis where we see them hit a drop shot or go for a winner, or in pickleball when people have less time and they decide to go for a winner from the bottom of the net, we rush. And so by practicing these behaviors and constantly making habits of doing things we wouldn't usually do, we're going to continually improve. So think about that when you're dinking cross court. We have longer time to hit. We want to hold that ball going all the way out, but think about the patterns one more time. So we're going to go cross court to the outside quarter, cross court to the outside quarter, and now I'm going to reset to the defensive spot in the middle, all the way out. All the way out. Notice if I can take it in the air, great. A lot of times you can't. I'm pushing it out. This is a very controlled drill, a very intentional drill that's always thinking about the next shot. And if you always know where you're hitting the ball and know the reason why, when the ball gets above your shoulders to attack, you won't have to think. But if you're having to think, you should always go to what you're trained to do.